You know that person who keeps saying they're going to start over? They talk about leaving the job, moving to a new city, ending the relationship, changing careers, finally becoming the version of themselves they keep imagining at night. But then Monday comes. They open the same laptop, drive the same route, answer the same messages, smile in the same way. And from the outside, it looks like they simply chose not to change. People think this means they are lazy, or scared, or too comfortable. But that explanation is too simple. Because sometimes the hidden reason you can't start over is not that you don't want a new life. It's that part of you is still loyal to the old one. And this is where it gets interesting. Most people treat starting over like a practical decision. Make a plan, save some money, update the resume, delete the number, move on. But psychologically, starting over is rarely just about logistics. It is about identity. It asks a quiet but painful question. If I leave this life behind, who was I while I was building it? That question can stop a person more deeply than fear ever could. Because when someone cannot start over, society often sees only the surface. They see procrastination. They see hesitation. They see someone who complains but never acts. Friends might say, just quit. Family might say, you're overthinking it. A partner might say, if you were really unhappy, you would leave. But psychologically, something else may be happening. For many people, staying stuck is not proof that they don't care. It may be proof that they care too much about everything they would have to admit. They would have to admit the job they worked so hard to get no longer feels meaningful. They would have to admit the relationship they defended for years has become emotionally lonely. They would have to admit the city they moved to for a dream now feels like a place where they disappeared. That matters, because starting over does not only mean choosing something new, it also means accepting that something old did not become what you hoped it would. Picture someone sitting in their car after work. The engine is off. Their phone is in their hand. They have a job search tab open, but they don't click anything. They scroll through apartments in another city, then close the app. They draft a message to an old friend saying, I think I need a change, then delete it. Nothing dramatic happens. They just sit there for 10 minutes before going inside. And the strange part is, they may not even know what they are waiting for. They are tired, but not ready. Aware, but frozen. Unhappy, but still functioning well enough that nobody around them sees the emergency. This is where the pattern starts to make sense. Psychologically, one possible explanation is that starting over can trigger identity conflict. That simply means two versions of you are pulling in different directions. One version knows the truth. It knows the current life is too small, too heavy, or too disconnected from who you are becoming. But another version remembers the cost. It remembers how much you sacrificed to get here. The late nights, the years of trying, the people you disappointed, the times you told yourself, once I get this, I'll finally be okay. So when starting over appears, it doesn't feel like freedom at first. It feels like betrayal. Betrayal of your past self. Betrayal of the people who believed in the old plan. Betrayal of the story you used to survive difficult years. But here's what most people miss. Sometimes people are not attached to the life they have. They are attached to the meaning they gave it. A person may not love their job anymore, but they still love the proof that they made it. They may not feel happy in a relationship, but they still feel attached to the version of themselves who tried so hard to make it work. They may not want the old dream anymore, but letting go of it feels like admitting they were wrong for wanting it in the first place. That's the trap. The hidden pain is not just, what if I fail? It is also, what if I wasted all that time? And that question can quietly paralyze someone. This doesn't apply to everyone. Sometimes people stay because of money, family, health, immigration, caregiving, or very real responsibilities. But for many people, even when the practical door is slightly open, they still can't walk through it, because the emotional door is locked from the inside. And here's the paradox. They may look like they are refusing change, but often they are protecting continuity. They are trying to keep their life feeling like one connected story instead of a series of painful edits. Because starting over can feel like cutting a chapter out of yourself. And once you see this, you can't unsee it. The person who cannot start over may not be weak. They may be carrying the emotional weight of an old identity that has not fully died yet. This is especially powerful in modern American culture because we are constantly told to reinvent ourselves, but also constantly judged for being behind. Online, everyone seems to have a clean timeline. New job announcement, engagement photos, fitness transformation, business launch, perfect apartment, new city, new life. But real starting over rarely looks that clean. It looks like applying for a beginner role when you used to feel advanced. It looks like moving back home when you thought you were supposed to be independent. It looks like being single again after everyone expected you to settle down. It looks like not knowing how to explain your life at a dinner table. And here's the part nobody talks about. In a culture obsessed with visible progress, starting over can feel like public failure. Not because it is failure, but because it makes your private uncertainty visible. You have to become a beginner where people once saw you as competent. You have to ask basic questions again. You have to tolerate being misunderstood while you rebuild something no one else can see yet. That can feel unbearable for someone who has spent years trying to appear fine. Remote work can make it even quieter. Adult friendships can make it harder to confess. Social media can make the comparison sharper. Dating apps can make identity feel like a sales pitch. Hustle culture can make rest feel suspicious. So the stuck feeling becomes more than personal. It becomes cultural. You are not just deciding whether to start over. You are deciding whether you can survive being seen in transition. That is a much deeper fear. Because transition is not an aesthetic. It is messy. It is awkward. It is often invisible. You are no longer who you were, but not yet who you are becoming. That middle space can feel like disappearing. Maybe this is why some people stay in lives that no longer fit. Not because they love the cage, but because at least the cage has a name. At least people know how to understand them there. But the new life has no proof yet. No guarantee, no applause, no clear identity. Just a quiet pull towards something that feels more honest. So maybe the reason you can't start over is not that you lack discipline. Maybe part of you is still waiting for permission to stop being the person everyone thinks you are. Maybe this isn't weakness. Maybe it's adaptation. Maybe at some point, staying predictable kept you safe. Maybe being responsible protected you from judgment. Maybe choosing the expected path helped you belong. Maybe not disappointing people became a way to avoid losing love, respect, or stability. And for a while, that may have worked. But what protects you in one season can trap you in another. A life can be successful and still no longer fit. A choice can have made sense then and still need to change now. A version of you can be worth honoring without being worth repeating forever. That is the emotional reframe. Starting over is not always a rejection of your past. Sometimes it is the first honest conversation you have with it. You are not saying, "Everything I did was meaningless." You are saying, "It meant something, but it is not the whole story." And that changes everything. So if you recognize yourself in this, the better question may not be, "Why can't I just move on?" The better question is, what part of my old identity am I still trying to protect? What would starting over force you to admit? That you changed, that you were tired, that you stayed too long, that you wanted something different from what you once promised yourself? And maybe the hardest question is this: who would you become if you stopped needing your old life to prove that your past choices were valid? You don't have to answer that quickly. Some answers take time because they are not just decisions, they are farewells. But maybe starting over does not begin with a dramatic announcement. Maybe it begins in smaller, quieter moments. Closing the laptop and finally admitting you are drained. Noticing that you feel more like yourself when nobody from your old life is watching. Writing down the truth before you are ready to say it out loud. Letting yourself imagine a future without immediately explaining why it is unrealistic. Because the first step is not always action. Sometimes the first step is allowing yourself to know what you already know. And if this felt familiar, maybe you are not stuck because you are incapable of change. Maybe you are standing at the edge of an old identity, waiting for the courage to stop calling it home. If this resonated with you, subscribe for more deep dives into the hidden psychology of everyday behavior. And if this felt familiar, you might want to watch the next video on why feeling behind in life is often not about time, but about identity.